right, tech session number 30, continuing our journey through mobile devices, and we're going to explore common issues that come up with using them. So the objectives for this technical session will be identify common issues that users may or may not experience with mobile devices, describe how to likely resolve those common issues as to be able to better help your customers. Behavior skills and mindsets we want to take into account with regards to this technical session. Obviously, persistence. This is a big one with IT. Persistence. We need to be problem solvers. We need to continue going after these problems until they're solved, even if it is something that is out of our skill set. If we hand it off to tier 2 or tier 3 for them to solve, follow up on that problem and say, hey, what is it you did to actually fix that problem? So the next time I see it, I have that other tool in my toolbox to be able to solve that problem. The more tools you have in your toolbox, the more valuable you are to your team and to your company. So approach problems as ways to essentially gain more tools to make you more valuable in the field. Adaptability. Market's ever changing. We need to change with it. We need to be able to adjust on a moment, given more information, and be able to approach these problems as we see them at that moment. If we are providing more information and that tells us the problem is in another area, we need to shift to be able to take care of that issue. All right, mobile device common issues that you may come across from time to time in working in the field. They are not all necessarily unique to specific devices. A lot of them can have similar issues that are cross-platform that are very common. Many of the things you come across are display issues. Cannot display to external monitors. Sticking keys. This is a big one for people who drink coffee at their desk all the time or eat at their desk all the time. This inevitably leads to key sticking. Intermittent or no wireless. Ghost cursors or pointer drift. Like they're just sitting there and all of a sudden their pointer just starts moving across the screen. No power, numlock indicator lights, no Bluetooth connectivity, touchscreen issues, apps not loading, slow performance or freezing up, unable to decrypt email, overheating and no sound from speakers, GPS issues, as well as battery issues. All right. Display issues that you may come across, especially with backlights. Early phones use, most phones use backlights unless they have moved up to the OLED screens themselves. So they would need to be powered through an inverter. And there are 3 main displays or display issues and their solutions below. First, no display. You would need to check the inverter first if it is not an OLED screen to be sure the backlight is actually functioning itself. The inverter itself is relatively inexpensive to replace rather than the whole LCD array itself. Dim display can be caused by the backlight as well as potentially the inverter, but you should also first go in and check the screen brightness in the settings of the phone if that is also the case. Also, on laptops, you can utilize function keys to turn down the brightness of the screen itself. If the person had been working in a dimly lit environment and the screen was a little too overly bright, they might have turned it down, forgot about it, and then when they got back to the office, they couldn't read anything because the screens were so dark in a well-lit office. And so they'll call IT, check the brightness of the screen first, just to make sure that those settings have not been adjusted before looking for a mechanical issue. Remember, we're looking for the least invasive method first. Then we move on to a mechanical method or something along those lines. Other thing that might have happened if the screen is not turning on itself, the laptop lid button may have become obstructed with dust or debris, and the computer may still think that the laptop lid is closed or down. So check the lid button just to be sure there's no dust or debris clogging it, just to verify that that is not your issue as well. All right. Now, if it's flickering, that tends to point to a connectivity issue. Because remember, LEDs don't flicker. They're either on or off. So if we start seeing flickering, that's probably letting us know that the connection, so either the connection between the LCD screen on the phone and the circuit board is not fully secure, or inside the laptop, you know, where the clamshell closes, there is wires that runs up through that. Those connectors from the screen itself and the motherboard may have become loosened over time. If the person carries it with one hand or carries it by the screen or what have you, they're not properly carrying it, it can bend and flex the laptop, causing some of these connectors to become loose. So if that's the case, we may have to open it up and just secure any connectors we see if that solves the issue. Possible, Nina. It would depend on the game. But there have been cases where games have affected settings on the phones or computers outside of it. One of the ones that I often bring up, especially when we get into security, is a game called Valorant. Has anybody ever heard of the game Valorant? Free game online that you can play. It's quite popular about a year ago. And it was kind of like Fortnite or any of those others where it was free to download and play. It was just loaded with advertisements or what have you, but it turned out the game was a rootkit that gave them root level access into your system down all the way to the kernel. It embedded itself at the lowest levels in your system, and you had to use administrative level passwords to download it. And so many people were wondering, like, it's near impossible to remove it from your system without doing essentially the King method and, you know, fully formatting your hard drives and getting rid of it. And so once this became known, a lot of people were like, I'm not even remotely letting that touch my systems. You know, basically every company out there was like, do not download this onto one of our computers because it gives them complete access to everything.
Whatever happened to that company? Did they end up getting prosecuted or anything?
It wasn't a local company.
Figures.
I think it was Tencent was the producing company.
So Kelly, you're saying that just using that game gave them access to all of your
downloading that game gave them full access to your systems, because you have, you know, with the root level access means basically full administrative level access, even below the operating system, like so deep into the computer that it was below the operating system. And they're saying like, oh, it was just to prevent people from cheating. It's like, I don't trust you for that. But, you know, that was one of the big issues with that particular game when it came out. One of the things I often cite to people, especially with regards to security, if the application is free, you're the product. Understand where they're getting their money from. So if they're giving it to you for free, they're getting paid somehow. How are they getting paid and why? So any free applications, or for the most part, if it's free, you're the product. Even here with Generation, it's free. You're the product. There are big tech companies that really need talent, like Verizon and stuff like that. They need people with A+. So instead of just trying to advertise and encourage people, hey, why don't we donate to a nonprofit that's already supporting these things? We'll work with them and try to recruit people out of these programs. So, but in this case, you also get something out of it. You get globally recognized certifications and stuff like that, and it's free.
I was kind of wondering how this program came about because it's very generous. But
well, first it was government grant, but now they're also getting corporate funding to help continue, because there is a strong need for IT, especially with more and more people working from home. So when there is that strong need, markets will open up for it. And that is what has occurred.
That's perfect. It works out for both of us.
Exactly. It's not always a one-sided venture. Sometimes it does work two directions. So, okay, kind of flickering. Move forward here. All right. Cannot display to an external monitor. This is with regards to laptops for the most part. You have to check first your compatibility. Is it something that your system allows to happen, especially if you're utilizing USB connections or something like that? And phones do it to a degree. I know there are some like ones that work with iPhone and Android where you can actually dock them into the HDMI port of a television or something like that. But for specific applications, they will block that function from happening. Like HBO Max or something like that would have that blocked in there so that you couldn't just plug it into somebody's phone and watch it on their full screen or something like that. The other thing is you want to check the key combination or function keys that enable you to toggle over to an exterior monitor. Because if you're doing, remember her was talking about mirror display, extended display, or transferring to an external display. If you have not turned that function on using the function keys on your laptop, it will not recognize that port and turn on that machine. So that would be one of the first things you check. This is also a troubleshoot. If somebody says my monitor on my computer or my laptop is not working at all, and then if you talk to them a little bit, they might give you some clues like, yeah, I was just giving a presentation 15 minutes ago and it was working then. They toggled it over to that monitor, but they didn't toggle it back. So you would need to hit that function key as well. I think it's FN11. I think I'll have to verify that, but you would need to toggle it back so that it would turn the monitor back on and it's not trying to transmit to an external monitor. So that is something else you would need to take into account when dealing with external displays. Any questions so far? I had not heard about Warzone, Evan. All right. Next, sticking keys. Now, most often, this is because somebody has spilled something on the keyboard. They eat a lot while they work, so crumbs and food matter gets in between the keys and gets underneath the keys. This is way more common than people would like to admit, like, oh, I never eat at my desk. Not necessarily true. And just wiping off the top of the keys doesn't take into account that which has snuck underneath it. With laptops and stuff like that, the keyboard is built in, so you can replace the keyboard, which tends to be one of the most invasive processes you can think of. It is pretty difficult to get to a laptop's keyboard because you have to turn it over, remove everything to get to the keyboard, and then you can remove the keyboard. So it is a lot of work involved in getting to the actual physical keyboard. In most cases, there are some that operate the other way, but they are rare. You might be able to, if it's just one or two keys, you might be able to pop off those individual keys and clean underneath them. But the quickest, easiest, and least expensive and least time consuming fix you can do is go ahead and just attach a USB external keyboard to it. Bypasses the internal keyboard, they can continue working. And then you can make a determination if deeper repairs, replacement, or whatever may be warranted. So if you have somebody, in order to get them up and running quickly, if they have a problem with their keyboard on a laptop, first thing you should do is just do the quick workaround, get them up and running with a external keyboard. Then after like their shift is over, something like that, then take a little bit further look and see what the issues may be. Questions so far? All right, moving along. Intermittent or no wireless. Most WAPs can only handle a limited number of devices. So you need to determine if the access points you're utilizing in your office actually can handle the load they're going to be put under. Now, the wireless antennas If it's intermittent, it may also be a result of you being too far from that particular access point, in which case you need to move closer to get greater connectivity. Could also be inside the laptop itself. The wireless antenna might have come undone because the wire comes through the clamshell up into the back of the monitor and goes around the monitor. So the repeated opening and closing of the laptop itself can cause the antenna to come loose. So that's something to take into account. If you have no wireless whatsoever, make sure your wireless is not disabled, like make sure they have not turned on airplane mode or just turned off wireless because they were at their house or they were at a cafe or something like that and didn't want to have that wireless access. And then when they got back to the office, they forgot to turn it back on. So be sure to verify that and make sure that that's actually turned on. If it is turned on, it may be the case that the wire or the antenna itself is damaged and may either need to be reconnected or replaced. Now, if I'm going to look at the antenna behind the screen itself, what item on the screen is most likely that I will damage?
Could you repeat that?
If I'm going to be opening up the monitor portion of the laptop, what is the item I am most likely to damage?
Is it the
Screen?
clamshell?
Plastic embellishment that holds the screen together.
Bezel.
Yep, it has-
The
Bezel.
bezel, yeah.
There you go.
Bezel,
Bezel.
the plastic bezel.
Yeah, you were right on it, Alan. Yeah, the bezel, the little plastic cover that covers up the edge. That is the most likely thing that will be broken in the process of opening up the laptop. Possible
He said
test-
it's called a bezel.
a bezel, yes. So possible test question there. All right. This one's a funny one. Ghost cursor or pointer drift. Now, if you're seeing like double cursors, that could be an issue with the trackpad itself. If the cursor is just jumping around, like every time the person is trying to type, their cursor is jumping all over the screen and they don't know what's going on. What that comes down to is they have poor typing technique and they're resting their palms on the laptop itself, which if you look at your laptop and rest your palms on it, what's there? The trackpad. So as they're typing, they're resting their hands on the trackpad, which is causing the pointer to jump all over the screen. So the way around that is to disable the trackpad itself so that when they're typing, the mouse won't jump all over the place. So that is a workaround for them. So that is one that may come up as well. So in order to kind of prevent the ghost cursor or solve it, you can put the laptop into sleep mode or hibernate. And then when you bring it back out of it, it may reset the trackpad itself and get rid of the trackpad. Also, if the latch is not working properly on the lid, when it closes, it doesn't necessarily know it's closing, so it's not shutting down. So the laptop is still running. And then if you do, like I was mentioning about my old coworker, where you throw it into a bag or something like that, it's still running. And then it's in an environment where it's insulated and it's cooking, it can cause damage to both the LCD as well as the motherboard and other components as well. All right, pointer drift. That's where the pointer just slowly starts moving across the screen on its own. This means essentially the mouse may need to be recalibrated itself, especially if you're using a little pointer stick. You can adjust the sensitivity of the mouse in the settings. Otherwise, it could be software issue or user issue. Like if it's the pointer stick, it could be that you're resting your hand against it or something like that. when you're looking and not realizing it, if you're just lightly touching it, could cause that pointer to continue to drift, but oftentimes that can be fixed with recalibrating. Or removing the pointer stick and cleaning it, because if debris gets under there, it kind of adds a little bit of pressure to it as well. Questions so far? All right. Uh-oh. Pause here.
Having no power. So devices run on battery power when there's no AC power running between the outlet and the computer. So is the device plugged in or is it running on battery power? That's one of the first questions you should be asking. First, we need to check if there is power coming from the wall outlet. You can try plugging it into a different outlet, and if it's receiving that power, it's very likely that there is an incoming from that outlet. Next, you want to check the power adapter lights on the adapter itself and the device. If there are no lights that appear on the adapter, it could be a faulty adapter. If there aren't lights appearing on the device, it could be the power port. So the power cord can become dislodged from the unit, so make sure everything is firmly connected. If any component of that unit isn't connected well, it's very possible that it's not pulling enough power or sending it to the computer. So make sure everything's connected firmly. And before replacing the adapter, try plugging it into another outlet and then try using it on another device. That's a really easy way to test if it's your adapter. Make sure the wall, it's connected to a good outlet. And if you try it on another device and it's not working for either, then it's probably the adapter. All right, num lock indicator lights. Typically our num lock indicator light is on when the number lock is not enabled. So the number key lock is located above the numpad. So it's this one right here. And then this could be your number pad if you don't have a separate area on your keyboard. Let's see if you can see it. It's kind of hard to see on mine, but right here is my numpad. And so it's dedicated to just numbers. But if I turn my num lock off, then it acts as like arrow keys. I've got a home button, page up button, page down. But if you have a smaller keyboard, then this might be your number pad. So on the function keys for the device that do not have a number pad, separate from the keyboard. That's worded weirdly. So sometimes you'll have to use the function key to make use of that num lock. And if you're ever, like if they're typing in a notepad or using Word and they're just randomly getting numbers, it's very possible that the num lock was initiated. And so when they're trying to type like they might have like a 5 show up. I think I think U is 4, O is 6, J is 1, K is 2, L is 3. So if they're just getting a bunch of random numbers, it's probably the number lock. Any questions? No Bluetooth connectivity. Bluetooth uses radio waves instead of wires or cables to connect with the device. This technology is called pairing and is a wireless short-range communications technology standard. Bluetooth has a button to enable and disable it, so it's easy to accidentally turn it off. This is mostly with laptops where there will be like a Bluetooth button. There's also a Wi-Fi button on some laptops. So if you hit that button, it'll completely turn off that function. You can also do that on your phone. There's a, let's see, it's kind of hard to see, but I've got like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth buttons on there, so I can easily turn it off or on. So that's one of the first things you're going to want to check. So when trying to locate the button, you have the function button row or the side or back of the device. So it might be behind the laptop or on the side of the laptop. If that doesn't work, replacing the antenna might be the solution. But typically it's going to be a simple fix. Touchscreen issues. Tablets, smartphones, and other handhelds use a touchscreen instead of a keyboard using touch flow and multi-touch technology. So touch flow was designed by HTC, and this technology allows the finger to drag up, down, left, and right to scroll on the screen. Multi-touch is a technology that recognizes multiple simultaneous touches on the screen, and this allows for resizing the screen. So that's when you see like pinching your phone, like squeezing in, can make it smaller, and pinching out will make it zoom in. So if the touch screen has become non-responsive, we're first going to try restarting the device. Something could be conflicting the technology, and by restarting, it clears that issue. This solution usually works to clear the issue. This will almost always fix the problem. We also want to check the screen for cracks to make sure the device has not gotten wet as well, because that can affect your touch screen. And if you have a crack in your screen, it could be that's the cause of the problem. Some devices have built-in diagnosis tools that can be tried if it is possible to access them. So if you're able to go into those diagnosis tools, then using them can also help fix the problem. Questions, concerns? All right. So apps not loading. Apps are available through a purchase at either the website or a store such as the Apple Store or Google Play Store. Even if the app is free, it is still considered a purchase. After that purchase, the app is downloaded to install on the device. I assume everyone here has downloaded apps onto their phone, so this should make a lot of sense. So a failed download is a common problem. So one problem users may experience is that the app may not load after downloading it. If you don't have a good connection, the download could have not gone through perfectly, and so that could be an issue. Simple solution is to first check that the program actually downloaded. If it did not, it may be a download issue, and re-downloading the app might resolve that issue. If the app downloaded but will not install or load, first try restarting the device. Sometimes once you download an app for the first time or even update the app, if you don't restart the device, it doesn't initialize that update or initial install. So restarting can help. If it still won't deploy, uninstall and reinstall the app. So another issue, too much data usage. Another issue with apps is some use too much data as they run in the background. So restricting these apps to only run with Wi-Fi will limit the overuse of data. And also, if you're not using an app, close it. That'll help you with your battery life your data because it stops it from running. My wife has a big issue with that. If you look at her phone, she has every single app she has on her device open all at once. So
That
any-
just means they're ready when she is.
I guess.
Whether it's 5 minutes from now or 5 days from now, that app is up and ready to go.
More like 5 weeks from now. So anytime that I get her phone, you'll just see me doing this, closing every single app she has open because it kills me. All right, slow performance. When performance slows over time, system performance can be increased by freeing up RAM space by deleting apps and programs no longer being in use. So you close those apps, you'll free up your RAM. So solutions for laptops, check the mobile device for virus or malware programs that have slowed the system. You can try defragging the system as well as using disk cleanup. You can check the system for possibly upgrading the RAM or hard drive. You can try updating the system, and we can also use msconfig to disable programs that are starting when the device powers on. So if it takes forever for your computer to turn on, it's possible that you have too many programs that are starting up the second you turn on your device. So reducing that initial load will help your computer start faster. So solutions for smartphones, stop background apps that may be using too much system resources. So like I said, close those apps. If you're not using them, just close them. It doesn't take that long to restart them anyway, so you might as well. Make sure you update your programs. In theory, they get more efficient with those new updates. Turn off background services that always run, including Google services, Maps, and Drive. Maps is a big one. If you have that always up and the GPS is always running, it's going to drain your battery and also slow down your performance. Questions, concerns? It's making a lot of sense. All right. I can only see like 4 faces and a few of them nodded, so I'm going to pretend like everyone is on the same page. All right, freezing. A frozen system can occur for many of the same reasons mentioned in the topic of slow performance. So slow performance and freezing are typically, they go hand in hand. So we'll do similar steps. If the device is completely frozen and unresponsive, we'll do a hard boot on the system. So for your phone, just restart the phone. That'll typically help. We can completely shut down by holding the power button until it shuts off. After the reboot, clear the app's memory cache and clear the temporary files. That'll help. If the device froze while texting, enable airplane mode, then disable it. And this can force the device to reestablish those connections. But if it freezes, just restarting is probably your best option. Let's see, I don't know if we get into it with these slides, but if an app freezes on you, closing out the app and restarting it will also usually fix it. If it's on your PC, you can go into Task Manager, kill the app or the whatever program you were using, and restarting that will also a lot of the times fix the problem. If you are unable to decrypt email, we'll be doing some of these steps. So viewing emails through a browser on a mobile device can be challenging because at times the mobile version of the browser cannot locate the certificate and the corresponding key required to decrypt the message. So assuming the system is kept up to date with the updates, solutions can include only view email in the app from the email providers such as Google Mail or Yahoo. So anytime I'm on my phone, I use my Gmail app. I don't go to Chrome and then try to go to Gmail through there. I'm sure it would still work, but the app's almost always going to be better and easier to use. You can use a smart card with the key that is needed to decrypt, and make sure that SMIME is enabled on the device is checked. So if it's using SMIME and you don't have it enabled on the device, then it's not going to decrypt it. Questions, concerns? All right. Oh. Overheating. So overheating issues can arise if the mobile device is vents are being blocked, if the system is being overly taxed by excessive gaming, or if the device is being used while it is charging. Yes, Humberto.
Yes. What is the difference of opening a Gmail, for example, from the browser or from the app?
The
Because
big
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
You're good. The big difference is you're going to be able to do more from the app because they designed the app to work specifically with Gmail, and so it has features that are just easier to use on your phone because it was designed for it. Whereas the browser version is made for PCs, desktops, laptops, and so they work better typically on your desktops and laptops. And so they're not really designed for phones all of the time. So there might not be a huge difference when using if you went through the browser on your phone with Gmail, but for some other services, it might just be better. It'll typically be better to use the app for the phone and then the desktop version for your desktop. Kelly, did you want to add something to that?
No, not too much. I mean, it mostly comes out, but a big part of it comes out to ease of use. It's just easier to go to it through the application versus going to the site. And that's not just for Gmail, it's for a lot of things like Amazon, many of your like big box store applications, emails, all that kind of stuff. The application tends to work better with the mobile devices because it is a stripped down version, but allows more functionality rather than utilizing a browser because the browser is designed more for a PC.
Yep. All right, so back to overheating. So some solutions to prevent overheating will include not putting your laptop on a bed or other soft that may block those vents. If you block those vents, it's hard for it to blow out the air needed to cool the system. We want to try to keep the device elevated while sitting on a flat, hard surface to help that venting underneath. So if you're like sitting on your bed or your couch and you got a blanket on you, you put that laptop in your lap and it gets really hot, it's probably because you're blocking those vents. We also need to keep the vents free of debris and dust by using a specialized vacuum, or if there's enough dust, sometimes you can use tweezers to pull out all that dust. If you have pets, you could be getting pet fur, hair, all that stuck in it. So just make sure you're cleaning those vents out. You can also reduce the device's use while the charging cycle is being performed. So if you're charging it and using it, it's going to heat up faster. So if you can reduce the amount that you're using while it's charging, that'll also help. Also, if you keep your device out in a hot area, that can also affect your heating. If you keep your phone outside in direct sunlight,
Yeah, on the dashboard while you're driving,
yep,
that'll cook a phone pretty quick.
I have a phone dock that I use in my car, and it goes into like the air vent. That's how it holds the dock up. And so when I put my phone there, I basically have a makeshift cooling system because the AC is going directly onto my phone. I'd like to pretend that it was intentional, but I just got lucky and realized how like efficient it was. So when I'm using my GPS and I'm listening to music, which would typically heat up my phone very quickly, it's like cooling it off. Yep, keep phones out of the sun when driving, they will get hot. Right, so another issue we might have, no sound from speakers. So if the speakers are not producing sounds, we're not getting sound from the speakers. First, we want to make sure that the volume is turned up. Sometimes you just accidentally turn the volume down. After making sure that your volume's turned up, check the device's settings and be sure that sound is enabled. Sometimes you just have the sound off. So you can check sound on to make sure that it's not specific to that app. If you're not hearing anything from any app, then you can move further. You can restart the device to clear any conflicts that may be happening. Restarting fixes a lot of issues, so that's usually a good one to start with. Check updates for the sound card or the integrated sound. Last, after backing up the device, attempt a system reset to restore to factory settings. There is one thing here that should be mentioned. You should check to make sure you are not connected to a Bluetooth device. If you are not getting any sound, it's very possible that you're connected to the speakers upstairs or to your earbuds that are sitting on your desk. So that's a good one to check too before you attempt to do a system reset. Right, GPS not functioning. If the location service does not appear to be working even after a restart, then first we need to make sure that the location service is enabled before trying any further solutions. So make sure you've got it enabled before doing anything else. Check to ensure that the device has either a cellular or Wi-Fi connection. If it doesn't have either, your GPS probably isn't going to work very well anyway. And the location services don't work without one of them. So be sure the user is not covering the antenna, since this would affect performance. Also, some windshields have UV protection, which can block signals from the satellite. Questions? If not, we're just going to move on through. Try to finish up a little early. Swollen battery. Always use the appropriate power charger. Do not use chargers that are not rated for the power of the device, even if the charging plugs are interchangeable. Kelly, did you want to add something?
No, I was basically just say once that battery gets swollen, you're pretty well done at that point.
Yep. Don't leave the device plugged in all the time. This is a particular issue for laptops users who primarily use their laptop at home. When the device is plugged in all the time, the battery does not have an opportunity to exercise its capacity. Nickel cadmium batteries build up a memory which can prevent a battery from offering a. So fully draining the battery will prevent memory buildup from interfering with fully charging.
It's called exercising the battery. Fully
Yep.
draining it, fully charging it, fully draining it, fully charging it. But many laptops nowadays actually have a mechanism in place to where they do exercise the battery while it's plugged in fully. So within the last few years, especially like Chromebooks and stuff like that, they do have built-in mechanisms that will actually drain the battery and charge it while it's plugged in.
Yeah. We also need to keep the device or battery stored in a cool and dry environment. Occasional use in the sun is fine, but do not store a mobile device or smartphone in a humid environment or in a hot car.
So no
Not
one in
good.
Florida should own a cell phone.
Did you ask a question, Kelly?
No, I was basically
Okay.
stating hot and humid. Nobody in Florida should own a cell phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, it came in one ear and out the other, and I like just didn't process.
It's like 120 with 98% humidity.
No one should live in Florida.
Prior to AC, almost no one did.
Right. Batteries experiencing short life or not holding a charge. So reasons a battery can be drained include keeping the brightness too high. So lowering that brightness can help with your battery life. Constantly enabled wireless connections or location services, and constantly enabled background data services. So closing out those background apps. You don't need your location services on all the time. So some solutions for keeping the battery from draining quickly include turning off some of those services. So lowering your brightness, your wireless and location services when they're not in use. Set the mobile device to airplane mode and manually connect to each service when needed. If airplane mode does not help resolve the issue, the battery life may be at the end of its life. There are a limited number of recharges, so if the battery dies suddenly right after a charge, it might just be time to replace it. Safety reminder. Use care when handling a charged battery, particularly when placing it inside a pocket, purse, or other container with metal objects. Contact with a metal object could complete an electrical circuit or short circuit, causing the battery to become very hot, which could cause damage or injury.
So many may remember the Note 9, the Explodophone, one that was having issues for a while out of, I think, was it Android, or who was it built it?
Yeah, it was Samsung, right?
Samsung?
Yeah, I think it was Samsung.
Yeah, it was the Note 9, wasn't it?
I don't
The batteries
remember
were blown
exactly.
up.
Yeah, I remember it happening, but I don't remember which one it was. I just know it wasn't my phone, and that's what I cared about.
Note 7, there you go.
Optional new slide. Troubleshooting common mobile device issues. So we use the same troubleshooting theory, whether we are troubleshooting desktop or mobile devices. First, we want to identify the problem. And just a heads up, this is a good thing to write down because
Steps
you
come up
will,
over and over again for basic troubleshooting theory.
yep. You will be using it a lot and it will come up when you are testing for the A+. So first, we want to identify the problem. So what is our problem? 2, we need to establish a theory. So what do you think is causing it? Then you're going to test that theory. After that, plan the fix and resolve the problem. If your theory is incorrect, establish a new theory. Then test that theory. And once your theory has been proven to be correct, that's when you'll plan to fix and resolve the problem. After you've resolved the problem, you're going to verify and prevent, which means you're going to have a discussion with the user and give them advice on how to avoid this problem in the future. And then at the very end, you are going to document. Possibly the most important step, because this will keep you and other people from having to go through as much troubleshooting in the future. Because if it's documented, then it's clear, like, okay, this is the problem here, the steps that I took, this is what worked. And so if you know this stuff worked, then it's a good place to start. So the space and configuration limitations can make troubleshooting mobile devices more annoying. For the purposes of this session, the term mobile devices includes laptops and anything smaller.
There are cases where they do not consider laptops a mobile device. Even though it is mobile, they consider that its own category, and the mobile devices would be things like tablets and phones and things like that. So
yeah.
Depending on the context, mobile device can mean, multiple things.
Move on. Optional updated slide, display issues. So if there's no display, the problem could be the connection to the screen, which goes through the case hinges. Make sure the computer is powered on, connect an external monitor and direct video to the display, and check to see if the LCD has been toggled off with the function key. For dim displays, can be caused by the backlight or inverter going out, but first check to see if your screen brightness has been accidentally turned down, the function button has been turned down as well, laptop lid button has become obstructed and the computer thinks the lid is up or down. So I think all of that was the same as the other slide we went over. For flickering, first check the cable to make sure it is not loose. However, the issue is usually a driver issue that can be resolved by updating the graphics card. Another issue might be the screen refresh rate is too low, so increasing that rate could resolve that issue. All right, objectives revisited. We should be able to identify common issues that users experience with mobile devices. We should also be able to describe how to likely resolve those common issues. Any questions? All right,